And I urge everyone who was part of this campaign or supported me in my bid for the nomination to do everything they can to support whoever the nominee is.
Beto O'Rourke is out of the 2020 presidential race. The former Texas congressman has been struggling in the polls and with fundraising in recent months. And at this point, he hadn't even qualified for the November 20th debate that's going to be here on MSNBC. O'Rourke's campaign said in a statement he will not run for Senate in Texas next year. And meanwhile, Politico is reporting that Kamala Harris's campaign has almost completely shuttered its New Hampshire operation. Quote, the campaign confirmed it is largely abandoning New Hampshire, keeping only a skeleton crew and canceling an upcoming visit. Harris also will not file in person to be on the ballot, a tradition that garners local media attention. Earlier this week, Harris announced plans to restructure her campaign, laying off dozens of aides at her Baltimore headquarters to, quote, go all in on Iowa. Here to talk about all of it, Jonathan Allen, NBC News national political reporter, and Beth Phui, NBC News senior politics editor, who is in Iowa covering tonight's Liberty and Justice event. That's where all those Democratic candidates are speaking. Thanks to both of you for being with us. John Allen, let me start with you. I guess in the what do they say, micro or macro? The big one is macro, I think. In the big picture sense, it is not a surprise that Beto O'Rourke is dropping out of this presidential race. Didn't even look like he was going to make the next debate. And yet, this was a very sudden departure, it sounds like. What's going on there?
So sudden, in fact, Steve, I spoke to one of his supporters, a big supporter from the West Coast who had flown into Iowa today for this Liberty and Justice dinner. Didn't find out that O'Rourke was exiting the race until she landed. Was not upset. I mean, was upset, obviously, that he was ending the campaign. Was not upset that she didn't find out before she got to Iowa. Understood that this was something that was probably coming. Certainly understood that O'Rourke was, going to speak to his supporters and everything. But it certainly was sudden for a lot of people who, made plans to be there for the dinner tonight.
So, Beth, on the one hand, there's the Beto O'Rourke news. On the other hand, this Kamala Harris, two stories this week with Harris. Number one, restructuring the campaign. That looked like discouraging enough news for her. Now, essentially pulling out of New Hampshire. I got to say, I've seen the move where the candidates say, I'm going to skip Iowa, try to jumpstart it in New Hampshire, jumpstart it later. She's putting everything in Iowa, but simultaneously pulling out from New Hampshire. This seems like an unusual move.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is driven by budget, of course, but she really didn't have a whole lot of really well thought out strategy here in terms of thinking that she could sort of like just play a little bit in Iowa, play a little bit in New Hampshire, and then somehow come up and do very well in South Carolina. That's what her advisors had sort of projected that she could do, to sort of do that hat trick. But Steve, that's really not very feasible. You have to show some strength right out of the gate. You have to show strength in Iowa, have to show strength in New Hampshire, one or the other, preferably both, or else you don't get that lift that you need to go on into South Carolina, into the Super Tuesday states. So they had to really restructure their whole plan. But I have to tell you, Steve, Kamala Harris looked very strong tonight. She had one of those moments. We've seen her throughout the campaign have certain moments. She had that moment with Joe Biden on the first debate in June. She had the moment when she kicked off her campaign in Oakland in front of that big crowd. This, I would say, is another one of those moments. She was strong. She had sort of a new message in her stump speech. She said justice is on the ballot, and she ticked through the many ways in which she could say justice is on the ballot. She got a really rousing response, and not just from the people who've been brought in by her campaign to be there for her. It was one of her better performances that I've seen.
So that's interesting because this event tonight, I think it used to be the Jefferson Jackson event. They've renamed it, but the lore holds that this is where in the fall of 2007, Barack Obama gave a speech that sort of relaunched his campaign, gave him the momentum for the final push to win the Iowa caucuses, and then obviously everything else that came with him. You're saying Harris had a good night there. What have you been hearing from the other candidates there tonight?
Well, Pete Buttigieg was really trying to model on that 2007 Obama performance that you mentioned, Steve. He came in with a huge cadre of supporters, a lot of whom had come in from out of state. I saw 100 Buttigieg supporters in a coffee shop today in Iowa who'd come in from California. And the first thing that Buttigieg said when he came out on the stage was, I'm here. The first time I came to Iowa was to campaign for a young man with a funny name. And we all knew who he was talking about. He was talking about Barack Barack Obama. He, too, is the young man with the funny name, trying to draw that link. And he gave a really, really rip-roaring speech. It was effective. And he did have a really strong organization here. But I guess my point is that Kamala surprised people by how well she did, given that she was really on this kind of fade out for so long.
John, Beto O'Rourke was up against the reality of potentially not making this debate. There's the November debate. Then in December, they're raising the DNC as the criteria again. Do you expect to see more dropouts in the next few weeks?
I think we may see some of that, Steve. This is getting harder and harder for a lot of the candidates. I think there's frustration among some of their supporters in particular because we haven't seen any contests. We haven't seen any voting yet. But the DNC rules are what they are in terms of the number of donors you have and the polling numbers that they expect for these candidates to get. I'm hearing from some of my sources that they're upset that what this does is essentially, in some cases, require these candidates to spend a lot of time raising money rather than spending time in Iowa or some of these other states canvassing and trying to get support. So we will see how it shakes out, but I do expect we'll see a little bit more of a winnowing. Usually candidates drop out when the plane stops flying because they don't have enough money to keep fueling it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.